Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Running Your Best Life. I'm your host, Victor Vizcaino, and as always, I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Adele. How's it going, Adele?
It's going fantastic. I am so excited about today because we have an incredible guest with us today. Her name is Kevin Stevens. I'll let Victor talk a little bit about her, but I've had the
Yeah,
wonderful opportunity in the last 10 minutes to just connect with her, and she's amazing. So it's going to be a lot of fun today, y'all. Y'all got to listen to the whole thing.
absolutely. Kevin is here to help us explore one of the crucial aspects of endurance sports, nutrition.
Mm.
We're thrilled to welcome Kevin Stevens, a dietitian, nutritionist, and a fellow Team Blaze member of the Triathlon Club here in Spokane. Kevin brings a wealth of knowledge when it comes to fueling your body for as long as for a long training in triathlons in the season and in the races for improving your performance. She is
And I,
also a seasoned athlete herself, so she truly gets the balance of training hard and eating right. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you. Thank you.
and,
Happy to be here.
and it's a wonderful opportunity for us to meet you, but I wanted to tell our viewers too, we are definitely going to get some personal info from Kevin as well. Her expertise, obviously, with her experience and her education, but she's going to share some personal tips about several different topics that are going to be very, very, very crucial to us older athletes, mainly with aging, and she's experienced some changes. So we're going to touch on that a little bit too. And if we do need Kevin to come back on that topic, we'll get her back another time. But it's so wonderful to have you here, Kevin. I am genuinely excited. We're in the same demographic. So I'm gonna let Victor lead you into some of the things we want to hear all about your experience and how you got into the things that you're doing now.
Yes, why don't we start there, Kevin? Why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and how do you get started with triathlons?
Okay. Well, as we talked about earlier, I've been a runner all my life. Started, in my late teens, and that was back in the '70s, and when running was a running boom. Um, and off and on, I ran pretty continuously all those years. In the Air Force, obviously, that's part of the Air Force fitness program. While I was active duty, I'm also a registered nurse, and so while I was active duty in my nursing role, one of the jobs that I was so fortunate to have was to be a health promotions manager and run wellness centers for different bases. So I actually oversaw the Air Force fitness program for whatever base I was stationed at for 3 or 4 thousand active duty members, and to ensure that they were training and testing and doing all the things they needed to do, as well as the health and wellness program where we had smoking cessation and blood pressure courses and healthy cooking classes and all those things. So that really kind of set me on that path. I've always been interested in health and wellness, but that really set me in a path of what do I want to be. So it wasn't always a dietitian by any means. I mean, I was happy as a nurse, and I went through the Air Force and did all of that. Before I retired, I kind of started looking around for a local job because I knew I needed to go back to work, even though I retired. And I actually was hired at WSU as on faculty at Washington State University as their simulation program director for the College of Nursing. Well, lo and behold, across campus is the exercise physiology and nutrition program, but their focus was not on sports in any way. Their focus was on cardiac rehab as a dietitian. So I still was able to get into that program. Here I am, almost 60 years old, and I'm starting my second master's degree, and managed to get through it while I was training for Ironmans, working full time, and working on that in that program. And finally graduated after a few years and became that dietitian. But the whole goal of that was to be more proficient in the realm of sports nutrition. So that was my total interest. I don't really want to sit down with people and tell them how to eat and not to eat this or that. I want to sit down with people and tell them this is how you race. And so really that was my focus. I'd done a number of nutrition certification courses prior to that in sports nutrition, but knew I needed to have that dietitian degree to kind of take it to the next level. And I never had planned on opening my own business or hanging out a shingle, because once I retired, I didn't want to do that much work. But doing things like what I do with Team Blaze or individual athletes, or I speak at swim clubs and figure skating clubs and locals around here, to help them kind of figure out how best to eat. And actually, one of the newest things I've started doing, I've been hired at Whitworth University, and I teach sports nutrition to their doctoral physical therapy students, which to me is really exciting, that they feel that it's important enough for physical therapy therapists to have some kind of sports nutrition background when they're working with patients. So that's been my latest endeavor. I've taught that course twice now.
Oh,
That
that's
that to
awesome.
me is just off the charts, because knowing that a university now is incorporating that. It's sports medicine. When we were coming out of high school, I got out in '75. I think you and I are probably just a year different. Victor's about 10 years behind us. But I had gone into the counseling field and wanted to go into sports medicine. Tulane University in New Orleans, after I had my undergrad in counseling and sociology and all the behavioral sciences from LSU, I finished in '79. I went to Oklahoma State, opened a master's, but I wanted to get into sports nutrition. And in the mid to late '70s, Kevin, as you know, that's when that was blowing up. The only place, I'm a New Orleans girl, Tulane University had the program that I had investigated. I started in other endeavors. I never went into the specific college courses, but I do know I actually talked to the director at Tulane just last year, within the last year, because they were promoting more and more of exactly what you're talking about, both in their kinesiology, their physical therapy, their pre-med classes, a lot more
Finally,
geared
yes.
to what your specific is, not just how does a doctor take care of a patient when they're overweight or they have some brain issues, whatever. But they're looking at all that, and I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for now young people to go into that field. And I'm really glad to know that you are doing so much in it, because that's going to be a contact for me down the road with the different people that I may be able to approach to get some additional knowledge and help. So thank you for sharing that. Wow, you're a
Absolutely.
busy
Yeah.
gal, aren't you?
And that leads straight to one of the questions that our swim coach at Team Blaze, Jim Breitenbach, I asked him today actually if he had any questions for you, and he said yes. I definitely want to ask her what's the best practice for when before you go in the swim and right after you get out of the swim, especially in the long course triathlon. What should athletes be taking, and what kind of calories, how many calories, what's the best practice?
So are we thinking like a half Ironman or a full Ironman type swim?
Well, let's do both. Why don't we start with the half Ironman? And I know it
Okay.
makes a big difference in
And
the
they're very
distance.
actually they're very similar.
Okay.
And it's kind of a flow. So whenever I work with long distance athletes, it's about what are you eating the night before, and then
Okay.
what are you going to eat for breakfast at least 3 hours before start. That's it, before the start time, before you get in the water. There's a certain amount of, there's actually carbohydrates per grams per kilogram of body weight. We can get very individualized in that, but I think the key thing is making sure you eat a high carb breakfast with only a tiny bit of protein, no fat, because you want that to digest before you hit the water. And then typically if somebody, let's say you're average athlete, male, 6 feet, 100 and 200 pounds, I would want them to have maybe upwards of, for a full Ironman, maybe upwards of 600 to 800 calories before they hit the swim. So, but that's going to be from the time they get up in the morning to their gel right before they get in the water. So they would eat a decent breakfast. They might sip on a sports drink on their way to transition. While they're setting up in transition, they're sipping this sports drink. And then prior to getting in the water, when they put on their wetsuit, they're taking a gel or maybe 2 gels to hit that calorie mark. And again, that's very individualized. But the key is good breakfast, good dinner the night before, spreading that breakfast out where you have most of the calories right when you, that 3-hour window. And then you might have sips of sport drink and a gel or 2 before you actually get in the water. You can take that gel with your wetsuit. It's not going to really kick into you about 30 minutes into the swim.
Right.
But the idea is to top off your tanks
Okay.
with that gel. And a lot of people go, I don't like gels. I don't want gels. Then we have to find what would work for you, right? Gels are just a common thing that's out there. They're easy to take. You know how many calories you're getting. I mean, you can work with just doing liquids instead. But we don't want volumes in your stomach before the swim. So we have to watch that. And so again, it's very individualized, but the key is that breakfast and then spreading those calories out a little bit into transition and then having that gel before the swim.
And again, experimenting before the race.
Please, yes. That is so, so important. And that can drive any point home. It's like, don't do anything new on race day. Every long ride, every long run, every long swim, you should be practicing your race day nutrition. And so the key is you got to figure that out probably a couple months before the race, not 2 weeks. A couple months before, when you start getting, I usually tell my athletes, when you start getting into workouts that are over 90 minutes, so a 90-minute run, 90-minute bike and longer, you should be practicing your race day nutrition. So you kind of got to figure out, what do I want to eat? What do I want to drink? Because that's the hard part is, oh, this tastes horrible. I'm throwing that one out. I got to start over again. Sometimes you do. And you may not get it right the first race. You may not get it right the second race. It takes years. It can take years to really nail down your nutrition so that you don't have to think about it. So I personally, I use, if we can say brand names. Can we say brand names?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have any loyalties.
Okay, so I use Hammer products because that's just where I started. I've tried switching it up because I always think, well, is there something better? But there isn't for me. But now I know every race I go into exactly what I need to take in and exactly how to mix it and exactly how I'm going to feel on it. And I already train with it, on any of my longer runs or rides. So it just makes it easy. But it takes a little trial and error to figure that out.
Yes, and one of the things that I tell my clients a lot is when they tell me I don't like to take this in the mornings or in the afternoons, but they're usually talking while they're running or something like that. It's like, yes, but my caveat is that we need to start doing them so that we can experiment, because you're gonna have to take those calories the day of
Yeah.
your Ironman. So if you're not having that breakfast, like you said, and you wait till the race day to have that breakfast while you're experimenting on race day, and also you're not having that adaptation of being laying in your stomach for thing and then transitioning to the bike and all that. So that was my next question: is what do they take right after they get out of the swim?
So I encourage my athletes not to take anything until they get on the bike.
Okay.
Typically, they've swallowed a lot of water. And so I don't want them even hydrating until they're 20 minutes into the bike. And then they would start with their fueling hydration protocol, whatever it was that we happened to set up. Hopefully mostly liquids on an Ironman versus a ton of solids. And we can get into that separately. But that's, you need to give your stomach time to settle. So you really don't need a half of a peanut butter and jelly sandwich while you're getting out of your wetsuit and changing into the bike, because you've got that gel is still on board too, especially if 2 of them. So you really don't need anything till you start getting into the bike, about 20 minutes in, and then you start your fueling and your hydration protocol, whatever it was that got set up for that.
Okay.
I have a question real quick for Kevin, if you don't mind. With your hydration, because I know what I specifically use, and I'm very much in line with, you find what works and you never change. Just like the pair of shoes. You don't wear a new pair of shoes on race day. You've got the same shoes. For 40 years I've worn Sauconys. I'm not going to change the model unless they change the model. So the key is that for hydration, what do you suggest? Are there certain like balances that you would like your triathletes to have, especially when talking about a competition? How much of it would be the water? How much of electrolytes? How much do you want to have any of the, like the sodium or the salt? Do you suggest that? Any of these other things that they would need to go along with whatever the solid / gel type thing that they might use as well, or the honey stingers or whatever. What would you suggest on that hydration part of their protocol?
Typically, again, very individualized and something that we practice in training in different weather conditions, right? So 100-degree race day, and you've only been practicing 60 degrees, your hydration is going to be way different.
Yes.
prime example, 2015, that was my last full Ironman. I did Coeur d'Alene and Penticton that year, but Coeur d'Alene was 105 for temps, and it was 120 on the tarmac on the bike. And so I'm tooling along with my Hammer product, right? And it's in my plastic bottle in my bike holder, and trying to drink this stuff. And oh, by the way, now it's just like hot. It is just hot fuel
Soup.
and just like gross. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't drink it. So I ended up, I think on the second loop of the bike, I ended up switching to Gatorade. And I had practice with Gatorade, but I drank Gatorade in my life, Gatorade endurance, it wasn't that big a deal. But again, it's finding what's going to work and knowing different conditions are going to change that. But hydration wise, typically I will recommend anywhere between, again, body size is going to make a difference. Effort's going to make a difference, but 20, 26, maybe 30 ounces at the most of water per hour, depending on the conditions. And even like on that hot race day, I was probably way over that 30-ounce mark. I was also had to up my sodium. So typically this is just kind of principles that are out there, but you adjust them by person. Right. You want X amount of sodium milligrams per 32 ounces of fluid. So if you're 32 ounces of water, maybe you are at the 400 milligrams of sodium. So if you drink 32 ounces in an hour, you need 400 milligrams of sodium that hour. But if it's really hot, you may need 800 milligrams. And I ended up doubling my sodium intake for that particular race because I could taste, I'm not a salty sweater, but I could taste the salt that day. But I had a really good race. So, knowing that I needed to do that. So really it's condition dependent, but when I'm working with a new athlete that's going to say, hey, I'm doing Ironman this year and I'm looking up a plan for them, I'll start them out with maybe 20, 24 ounces an hour and see how they do with that, knowing that if it's a really hot day, that may increase. And then I'll usually start them out around 400 milligrams of sodium per hour. But if they're a salty sweater, that may go up. I worked with a gentleman in Texas a couple years ago, and he was obviously Texas running and salty sweater on top of that. We're way at the top range of 800 milligrams an hour just to get him through, a 2-hour run kind of thing. So again, very individualized. The challenge with that is, unless you go to the lab and do a sodium test, you don't really know what you're sweating out. We can do sweat tests. That's easy enough. We can tell how much fluid you're losing through sweat. So it's a trial and error, practice it. Sometimes we just take a shot at it and hope it works. But I think the key thing that athletes need to get out of that is for long course races, you probably need to take in some sodium, and ideally an electrolyte version, not just sodium like salt over the table kind of thing. So you get the balance. We don't worry too much about magnesium chloride and calcium, sweating those out, but they are in that electrolyte mixture. And then the other challenge to that is people want to drink their electrolytes and drink their water and drink their fuel. And I'm going, boy, that's a lot of volume in your stomach, and you're going to you're not going to absorb. So I do recommend tablets, capsules, whatever is out there. Again, I'm a Hammer fan, so I take my little capsules. So that's separate. You really should keep your fuel, your water, and your electrolytes separate so that you can control what you're getting. Because if you're drinking all your electrolytes, oh, by the way, you just lost that bottle off the back of your bike. So now you have no electrolytes, so all those little things that play into that, those little factors that play into those long course races, anything can happen, but take control over whatever you can. And by separating those three out, it gives you a whole lot more control over what you're putting in.
I think one of the biggest points you made too is elements and the climate that you're competing in. Because if you're not aware, I'm in South Louisiana, I'm running and swimming, we're biking, running, I think it was 95 on the bike this morning. Yesterday morning at 7:00 my time, it was 81 degrees, 98% humidity. That's at 7 a.m. And we were on the bike. I was on the bike about 2 hours. So the biggest thing is that watching your climate, watching your elements. Now, if I came your way, I'm gonna think I need sweaters and coats because I'm in 40-degree weather, which is perfect for running a marathon. But the biggest thing that not just the individualized consumption, but be aware of your elements, and they can change daily depending on wind, rain, anything like that, especially in that long of an endurance
Absolutely.
event.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would tell you when I did Penticton, I want to say, was it 20? It was either 2015 or 2013. We were chased by thunderstorms. So we had squalls as we're going around the lake, hit with rain, hit with wind. Then we finally get around the lake, get up the big pass and start going around. It's a very mountainous bike course. And then you got thunderstorms coming behind you. You got your raincoat on, it's just, so you not expected, right?
Right, right, right.
Yeah.
And another one was when I did Boise, a half Ironman down in Boise, and the swim was horrible because it was snowing and raining, and we were standing up there at the transition, and there's no shelter, so we're standing in the porta potties to get warm. We're putting our suits on hours ahead of time to get warm, and there's 2-foot swells, and so the age groupers go in, the pros go, I'm not swimming in that stuff, and they bail. And the age groupers go, oh, let me in. So we go swim, and then we get out. We're getting ready to get on the bike. And oh, by the way, the bike has been shortened because there's snow out on the bike course. This in the middle of June, snow on the bike course. So we had, a 15-mile ride into town. But here's the caveat with that one. If some athletes, and myself included, I will freeze my fuel for the run so that it's cold. And I'm on a 3-hour bike and it's going to unthaw enough, right? Well, no, now I'm on a 15-mile ride into town and there's my fuel for my run, frozen solid. Frozen solid. So
Yeah.
how do you backpedal with that one? I can't even remember what I did for that, but that's
Yeah.
why you always have backup fuel, gels, bars, whatever. Always have backup.
Right. Anything.
That's so true.
I'm going to let Victor jump in just a second, but I'm going to share just something really funny. I had helped a girl train for her first marathon. She was turning 35, and she said, I just want to run a marathon. We were running, and she did not follow kind of the little pattern I told her as far as what to take in, how much water, etc. She literally stopped at every porta potty along the route. We were in the New Orleans area. Every 2 to 4 miles, there were porta potties and nutrition, rest areas, the whole bit. She was so belly heavy from the water in her system, and by the time she finished, she felt, there's two ways of looking at it. You can go to either extreme. And she said, Adele, I should have paid attention. I'm like, yeah, because I've got, marathons under my belt where I've experienced some of that, not to that same degree. And she ran 2 more and followed instructions, except for the last time she wound up in the IV tent halfway through by not drinking. And, what do you tell these youngsters, Kevin, right? Victor, what do we tell these youngsters?
Yeah.
Pay attention to someone who may have done it or experienced it or learned in a different way. So, all right, Victor, I'm going to turn it back over to you. I know you have another question
No.
for Kevin.
Oh, it's the same. Hyponatremia, it's a real thing.
Yeah.
It can be very dangerous.
Well, let's touch on that for just a second, Victor, just so people know. Hyponatremia is when you have low sodium in the body, and it comes from drinking too much water and not taking in enough sodium. And so that's where that balance comes from of, X amount of sodium milligrams per 32 ounces of water. But it's really important for athletes to pay attention to that, especially back at the Packers, right? So some of us that take 15 hours to do an Ironman, we're drinking for 15 hours. But it's so easy to overload our system if we don't find that balance with the sodium. So just a point for listeners to just be really aware of that, because that will put you in the med tent.
Right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, it will.
Yeah.
It will, definitely. Definitely.
Definitely been there a few times. Not with a hypernatremia, but definitely suffering from dehydration. And I think that be the couple of times I could not figure, because I felt like I did hydrate. I felt like I did everything, but then I found out in the last one where I actually passed out and ended up in the tent and cramped. But
Oh, wow.
when I came home from traveling, I tested positive for COVID.
Ah,
So
that has to do with it. Yeah.
I'm just suspecting that my body was trying to fight that, because I started cramping around mile 16, and then I thought, you know what? I don't want to do this again. I don't want to end up in the tent. So I walked it. I said, I'm taking my time. I'm just gonna drink, walk, and right as I'm getting to the finish line, I'm hoping that, okay, please don't cramp. And sure enough, as soon as I crossed the finish line and I start cramping, they had a shower like a cold water, so I went in there and it just started cramping so bad. And somebody brought me a chair, and when they put the chair under me, I somebody else said, "No, no, no, don't sit down. You need to keep walking." And it's like, I can't, I can't, I'm cramping. And it's like, "Can you make it to the medical tent?" And I said, "Yeah." And as soon as I said that and got up, I
Good.
hit the floor, and the next thing you know,
I wonder
uh,
if you were hitting a little heat exhaustion as well.
Yeah.
that's probably true. Because that's the other thing when you said when the climate changes, it's so difficult for any of us to have time to acclimate. Because I remember with the Boston
Mhm.
Marathon, I did fine in the Boston Marathon. I mean, I got a little bit of sickness, like probably an hour after I had finished. But for a lot of people, they had to get rushed to the hospital because the Boston Marathon is in April. And by that time, very few people, especially in the US and the northern parts, have not gotten acclimated to the
Right, right.
heat. And all of a sudden, because they kept changing the weather forecast, and it was just kept getting higher and higher. And they would say, "Oh, be careful, it's going to be in the 70s. Oh, be careful, it's going to be in the 80s." And once it got higher than that, they started telling people that they could postpone, they could defer their
Okay.
entrance because they knew there's going to be a lot of trouble. Most people, you traveled, you paid so much money,
Yeah,
you're like,
Right.
you do it.
Right.
Yeah. I know when I used to do, I don't know if you ever remember Troika. Did you ever do
"Oh
Troika?
yes, I got to do Troika."
That was an August race around here, so it's always pretty hot. But usually every
Mhm.
time I was a half Ironman, Adele, that we did out here, and you rode into town and everything. But it was always hotter than heck by the time we were done. But usually after those kinds of races, I would feel really nauseous. And to the point where what was going on. But I always found that if I ran to the car, and took extra electrolytes when I got
Mhm.
done, as well as a recovery drink of a little bit of carbs and some protein, that took care of the nausea. But I'm guessing 10 to 1, I was pretty dehydrated no matter what.
Right. Right.
And sometimes athletes need to realize you're never going to replace one for one. You're never going to drink everything you sweat out. But what you're trying to do is just keep your body in some semblance of balance to finish the race, and not bonk or pass out. So you have to steadily keep that intake in. And it's not about, gee, I drank 2 hours ago, I better hurry up and chug some. It's about every 20, 25 minutes taking in fluids or fuel or whatever is set up for you. But keeping that consistent intake so your body can process it and use it as it needs to, knowing that you'll be dehydrated when you get done with the race no matter what, but not so bad that you can't function.
I know a lot of people use
Yeah.
timers in their watch
I used
to.
to
Oh
all
my
the time.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah.
Or my Garmin, I'd set it up for. In fact, I was riding my bike the other day and it beeped at me to drink something. I said, "Well, I'm just out for." I'm not worried about that. But when I first started racing, yeah, I had my Garmin time in me all the time, because it's really easy when you're a new athlete to get caught up in what's going on around you and
Right.
forget taking your drink for an hour at a time. And so
Yeah.
I really encourage new athletes or any athlete to keep an eye on the clock.
Well, and there's so many opportunities now to keep that alarm set. If you're running with a buddy, take advantage of trading off. Hey, let's get some water. Let's get our nutrition. It's been 30 to 40 minutes. So I will tell you this: the second marathon I ever ran, my very first one, was right after I turned 40. Kevin, this was I turned 40 in December '97, and I ran the New Orleans Marathon a month later, which was my very first one. There were a lot of beautiful reasons for doing that. My second marathon was in 19, also it was in July 12th, 1998, in San Francisco. Doing hill training in Louisiana was very, very um, funny to do. We would go run, we'd go run overpasses, all that. But it was the hot, we started on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, 32 degrees and mist, 6:30 in the morning. And I was the middle of the pack, like a 4 to 15 4 hour 4:15 marathon at the time. We got to that 2 hour mark. It was 85 degrees, and they said the humidity had jumped. It became the hottest day on record at that time in San
Of
Francisco.
course.
Well, here I'm a Louisiana runner. I'm like, oh, this is great. And people were dropping like flies. They had 1,500 did not finish racers
Wow.
in
Wow.
like maybe 8,000 runners. And that was because when you look at their demographics, they could be from the Northeast, they could be from other countries, they don't run in heat and humidity. The person I was running with crashed at mile 18, left him at the medical tent there, finished him, and then met him after. But yeah, I mean, you really do have to pay attention to what your body's doing and get off the race route, get the attention you need. I'm assuming that's something that you would advise to your athletes when they have those very distressful moments where they don't think they can finish, that they're truly sick and dehydrated to a point of I've got to stop. How do you
So,
advise people to do to know when to quit if necessary?
I've not really thought about that much.
Okay.
I'm hoping that all the information I give them keeps them from getting to that point. But it would be just like what you said. I mean, if you get to that point where you can't walk or you can't function and your vision is blurry and you're stumbling all over, it's time to get out of the
Yeah.
game. There's a really interesting video on YouTube about all the famous athletes, including the Brownlee brothers that have bonked. And I show that in my physical therapist class or to those students so they can see just how serious bonking is.
Yes.
And if pro athletes are doing it, it's so easy for us age groupers to get bonked in that bonk realm too. So I do talk to them about how to avoid the bonk or how to avoid getting to that point.
Okay.
I've been pretty fortunate. Most of the athletes I've coached have all finished, as far as I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're
But
paying
from
attention. They're
Sometimes I don't
being
get any
coachable.
feedback, so I don't
Right.
always know. But
But
yeah,
I
it's
think that that's what my sister did. Oh, how are you going to avoid that? And what would you do different? And I think that now having this happen a few times, that if I have to stop and walk because I'm cramping really bad, I will. I'll just stop. I'll just say, you know what,
Yeah.
come pick me up. Because I used to think that it's, oh, I'll still finish it as long as I take it easy. I'll be okay, and that has proven me wrong.
well, and I think the other piece of that is if the damage that's going on inside your body, when your body
Yeah.
gets to that point and you keep trying to push it, you are really working on some muscle
Right.
issues, some rhabdo possibilities, some kidney issues, depending on what's got you to that point anyway. But it's just not worth it unless you're gonna make a living out of it, right? And try and get
Right.
on that podium. It's just not worth it. Even though I know we
Right.
spend tons of money and training and time. And I watch you guys ever watch American Ninja Warrior?
Oh
Yes.
yes.
So these
Quite
guys
often.
train all year long and they go out on the second obstacle, and I feel so bad for them because they've been working so hard and now they're out for the year on the second obstacle. And so again, it's like that when you're in a race and you have to pull out, you put so much effort into it. And so you want to keep going, but again, if you think about what damage could be going on in your body, that's probably what needs to be expressed to especially new athletes, that it's not
Right.
worth it.
And I
Right.
think it's
And
age appropriate too, if you don't mind me saying that, Victor. I think it's age appropriate too because we've
Yes.
all encountered people in their 70s, 80s, 90s who are still out running in whatever way they run, walk, or complete. Let's just say a marathon distance. Victor encounters those people all the time on those series of seven, and they might do 200 or 300 of these things in a year. But what they're doing is they're staying within their capabilities. They're staying within their nutrition, their fitness level, and they're not going to win any awards. They're just doing it because they have the genuine love for it, but they know what they need and they know
Yeah,
what they can and can't do. And
really good.
Victor's encountered many of those people that we've talked
yeah.
about. So
Eh,
I think
y-
age appropriate too is watch what your modifications have to be so that you can enjoy the journey you're on and be successful at it. So I
Yeah.
think that's a key point,
Yeah,
Kevin.
But even I think I encourage young people to think of us older as, do I want to be doing this at that age, and do I want to be
Mhm.
doing this in a healthy way, so that you can constantly look at it as a longevity um, activity and sport that you can enjoy for many many years, rather than focusing, like myself, I'm one of those guilty of wanting to qualify for that Boston, and then it's like nothing else matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's a really good point. Scott Roy, our old coach who passed away in 2012, one of the things he said to me was, because I'm a type A, do it all kind of person, as
Yeah,
you guys
yeah,
probably can see, is that you're going to burn yourself out. And that's what he told me. You're going to burn yourself out. So, in 2015, I did a half Ironman. I did 2 full Ironmans. I did a full marathon. I was doing my master's, doing all that. And then lo and behold, in the next couple of years, I ended up 4 knee surgeries that, and that was, I was well into my 50s then, and almost 60. And so I'd already burned my body out. And was that worth it? And I think about that all the time. Was that worth it? It was an ego thing. It was like, I got to do 2 Ironmans this summer. I can see if I could do it. Did I
right,
need to?
right.
Hell no. Should I? Probably not.
And if we were going to tie, nutrition to longevity, what role does our nutrition play in being able to do this in a healthy
Nutrition is key for everything, right? Just for our bodies to function, and when I say proper, good nutrition, appropriate nutrition. Doesn't mean you can't have some snacks now and then and chocolate cake and whatever, but high protein is so important for the endurance athlete. I mean, like, what's my latest? 2 grams per kilogram of body weight, or at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So that puts you up in the 140, 150s grams per day. And that can be difficult to get, but endurance athletes really need high protein diets along with those high carb diets, right? So when I'm figuring out how much they should be eating, depending on where they're at in their training cycle, so is their basic metabolic rate plus X amount of calories on top of that, depending on what, again, are they in the competition phase? Are they doing 5-hour bikes and, 4-hour runs kind of stuff? But the nutrition plays key for us as we age, because we have to keep our bones strong, right? Osteoporosis is really prevalent in this country, and for men and women. The other piece of that is making sure that they're not in calorie deficit when they should be in calorie surplus for training. Many, many young athletes, especially women, will not eat enough to support their training, because a lot of times they just don't know that. They don't know they need to eat X amount. When I work with the swim clubs around here and the figure skaters, whoa. And I also did a lot of pro bono work with Gonzaga athletes when I was working at WSU. And a lot of those poor women had stress fractures and osteopenia already because they weren't eating enough to support their sport. And so it's that nutrition piece is so critical, not just when you're young, but again, as you mentioned, Victor, as we age, because we want to make sure that we're getting in the nutrients we need to support what we're trying to accomplish.
And you
I think
mentioned
it's
earlier
important.
making sure we
Yeah,
keep our muscle mass.
Yes. And so
yeah.
where are, I'm sorry, Del?
No, I was just going to say, protein factor is not just as we age for the bone and the physical, but the brain health. It requires a
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
basic nutrition. And as we age, we're always tending to think, do I have any brain issues, or do I have an onset of dementia?
That every day.
Yeah, and the key, I think, and I do a lot of research on this one specifically because of my age and having people ask. But if you can get the protein in and the right nutrition, the best nutrition, modify what you need to, whether you're an endurance athlete or not. If you keep that brain health with the physical and bone health, you are giving yourself years of great mental and physical health within whatever capabilities you want. And if you turn into that endurance athlete part of life, like all of us are, I mean, look where we are now in our later 60s. We're still doing a lot of stuff. Okay. And our brains are functioning, our bodies are functioning. But we've also had to modify depending on menopause, depending on other medical things that we've come through, as Victor's noticing now. But that's a key point in aging, but also just being an endurance athlete. Age is not a factor. Keep it in mind to keep all that nutrition at a very, very concentrated, intentional level. I think that's huge, Kevin. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. As Victor mentioned, muscle mass, as we get past the age of 30, we lose a certain percent of our muscle mass every single decade. And I can never remember the exact amount, but by the time you reach 60 or 70, it's astronomical if we don't mitigate that. And we mitigate that with increased protein and strength training. You know, I'm really on the strength training bandwagon. I teach a fitness class out at my gym at Airway Heights for Silver Strong, and it's really for anybody above 50, but I get 30s and 40s in there, and trying to drive that point home of strength training for everybody. Really, it should start in your 20s, 30s, 40s, but as you get older, it is so much more important. It actually links strength training with mortality rates. So again, that muscle mass is so critical.
Uh, Creatine. Can we touch really quick on
Yes,
creatine? Because
yes.
that's been a
Protein.
buzzword lately.
Everybody should be on creatine. That's
Okay.
I love it.
the
I love it.
buzzword. Everybody should be on it. Women especially. It's not just a men's supplement. They are finding more and more the benefits of being on it. And the dose is 5 milligrams a day. And they're finding it can impact brain health as well as, obviously, we're trying to maintain muscle mass. But it is the buzzword, and there's valid research behind it. It's probably one of the most researched supplements out there that are safe to take.
Okay.
So my 2 cents would be everybody should probably be on creatine.
Awesome. Glad to hear, because I just bought some and I started taking it. So
Yeah, yeah, I
thanks.
get it pretty
You're just
regularly.
starting on it then. You're just starting to add it to your nutrition base, Victor?
Yeah, just
Oh, okay.
yeah, by itself right now, because
Okay.
I used to think that maybe it was into some of the supplements that I've took, but I don't think so. But we'll see what the
Yeah.
benefit. Once I broke that rib, it was especially like I need more stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah, they're really finding out, again, it's very research based about the
Mhm.
benefits for everybody to be on a creatine supplement.
Yeah.
And the link to brain health, of course, has always piques my interest, and then obviously muscle and maintaining that muscle mass is so important. So that's my
awesome. And I don't want to pass this one question from an anonymous, and we don't have to go into it deep, but they did ask, how do you get rid of belly fat?
yeah. Let me go back to my notes on that one. All right. As we kind of talked a little bit about this earlier before the podcast started, but belly fat is you're not just fat in your belly and not fat anywhere else. When you gain weight, the belly has a tendency to accrue it, especially if you're peri or postmenopausal, because hormone balances are no longer there. But even with men, typically belly fat can indicate an issue with metabolic syndrome, where you might have pre-diabetes moving into diabetes. So you have high fasting blood sugars. You might have high blood pressure, or you're borderline high blood pressure. You might have high cholesterol and high LDL. And all those things go together. And typically the signs, whenever I see someone that has a pretty good sized belly, that's the first thing I think about is metabolic syndrome. That they may have that starting, or may already be in the middle of it, or maybe it hasn't been diagnosed yet. But the visceral fat is around your organs, and that will have a tendency to build up first, and then it comes into the sub-Q part, and that's where you end up getting, I'm going to say this, my husband, he had a pretty good belly. When and 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 I will say, although sometimes his legs were skinny, and so he was holding all his fat there, but how to get rid of it is no different than probably getting rid of fat anywhere else. You have to think about what are you doing for exercise, avoiding those things like the trans fats, the fried fatty foods, increasing your protein. Stress can be a huge factor in belly fat because of the cortisol. So when you get really
Yeah.
stressed and the cortisol levels go up, your body wants to store fat in your belly. So
I'm
if you
glad you mentioned that, because really quick, I was going to touch on. I went on a fasting for different reasons. One was to lose a few pounds, but the other one was for some mental health that they were encouraging me to. I said, "Oh, I'm going to try a." I think I did a 36-hour fasting. So I started listening to the doctor on the YouTube, and he was saying the things that you shouldn't drink, and one of them was the reasons why he didn't encourage caffeine was because it causes stress that might cause cortisol in
yeah,
your.
I don't know if that's I think it depends on the person. So if you're drinking 10 cups of coffee a day, yes. If
Yes.
you're drinking in the morning, probably not that big a deal. But you know, if you drink too, it's just like any stimulant, it will increase your stress, and so that could increase your cortisol levels. So I can see a point of that. I can think it depends on the amount. I think it depends on the person. You know,
Yeah.
one
And the
cup.
purpose, the purpose for their diet, their fasting, I guess, if it's for, because according to him is like, if you're doing it to fat loss, then you may sabotage it in a
Mm,
way, or at least you it won't be as effective.
Yeah,
okay. Okay.
yeah, I could see that. So, so watching your stress, sleep is a big one. Sleep is a direct connection to obesity.
Okay.
Poor sleep habits, not enough sleep, for whatever reason. And a lot of times that people have health issues that don't allow them to sleep well, or a lot of times people stay up too late and get up too early because they don't have good sleep hygiene. And so they're really, the research out there on sleep has really increased as far as the connection to weight gain. Another one is eating in the evening. Now, this has been controversial for years that, you know, say, well, you shouldn't eat at night because then you're going to go to sleep and it's all going to go to fat. Or as long as your calorie intake is the same every day, it shouldn't really matter. And I just read something this morning that said you shouldn't eat at night. You shouldn't eat after late at night or before you go to bed because it does interrupt your digestion when you try to, or your sleep when you try to digest food.
Mhm.
Um, so I'm kind of in that camp of, you know, you probably shouldn't eat after, if you go to bed at 9, you probably shouldn't eat after 7, you know, give your body 2 hours to
Yeah.
digest because that will help with your sleep if nothing else. Um,
Yeah.
Another thing to watch out is added sugar. So fruit juices, Coke, pop, soda, refined carbohydrates, you know, cake, cookies, pasta. And for endurance athletes, this is a challenge, right? Because we need refined carbohydrates to fuel us. But the key with that is you want to have those refined carbohydrates like gels, waffles, Cliff bars, whatever you're taking, Gatorade, around your training. So I don't need them in the morning. I don't need them in the evening. I need them around my bike ride. I need them on my bike ride or on my run. I don't need to take them any other time. And that will help because you're going to be exercising and your body's going to use that excess sugar. Um, Strength training is going to be another one that will help with that, getting rid of the belly fat because you're going to get rid of the weight. And the other one that, you know, a lot of people don't like to do is tracking what you're eating. I
Right.
used to hate tracking, hated it. I found a really cool app, and so, you know, I recently lost some weight, and I started tracking. And as athletes, you kind of want to know what your macros are anyway. You want to know how much carbohydrate do I need to support my training, and much protein do I need today to support my training. And fat's kind of the third one. Nobody needs a lot of, but you need some of. But tracking your calories and your macros will really give you an eye-opening picture of, you know, that little picking 5 chips I just ate and the 4 pretzels I ate later, and all that stuff just adds up. And most people don't really think of it. Oh, it's just a couple chips. Well, you do a
Right.
couple chips every couple hours, 4 or 5 days a week, and boom, there's a pound. My biggest weakness was Jordan almonds. Do you remember Adele Jordan almonds?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh. Yes.
I was a kid, you get them occasionally. They were such a treat. And then even in the last 10 years, you couldn't hardly find them anywhere except at
Right.
Rite Aid.
Right.
Now Amazon has them. Oh,
Yes. Yes. You get like a
so
Delivered
basket
to your
of them.
door.
last time I bag or Jordan. So I was munching, I was reading a good book and eating Jordan almonds. And yeah, I put on some pounds. And
The
so finally
greatest
I
thing.
got rid of that addiction. But it was kind of coming to the realization that I can't exercise off those calories.
No.
Because it's really easy for endurance athletes to go, well, I'm doing a 10-hour bike ride today. I can eat whatever I want. Nope, it
No.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to think about, you know, yeah, 10 hours on the bike, that's going to be painful, but you took in a lot of calories on the bike for those
Yeah.
too.
Well, and overall health, because this is what I tell some of the people who argue like that or who think I can earn my calories. That
Yeah,
well, you know, when the doctor talks about smoking, you can't like say, "Oh, I'm running 2 miles. I can smoke a pack of
yeah,
cigarettes."
Yeah.
It just doesn't
Right.
work that way. It's like you're probably worse off
yeah.
doing both.
And I think we've kind of grown up in that mindset of if I exercise X amount of minutes, and who perpetuates that? All those machines out, they say, oh, you burned 500 calories on that 2-mile run, you know, so therefore you can go eat 500 calories.
Right.
And even in my own little weight loss journey, it's really coming to that. That's a slap in the face. You've got to really pay attention to that. You're not going to, you can't earn your food, right? You should fuel your body to accomplish your goals, and you work out, and if you're riding 10 hours, then you're going to fuel that 10 hours. So you can't go eat a huge McDonald's meal because you just rode 10 hours, because you already took all those calories in per hour. So, it's kind of an offset. But anyway, I think realizing that we can't earn our food, or shouldn't think that way. We shouldn't think that way more than anything else, which is hard to do. I mean, even I caught myself today going, well, I'm going to swim tonight, and I already did my lifting today. So what can I eat in the meantime, right? I have to go to Lucky Charms before I go to the pool because I'm going to work out. So, it's just a
I always used to
Yeah, I get
say
it.
you eat to live or live to eat. And when you just like live to eat, you want to eat everything, like your
yeah,
olives and your
yeah.
almonds. And I'm
It's,
an ice cream and pizza girl. I love it. So I would always like, okay, now I've had to reset things nutritionally recently, with finding out I have celiac disease and sensitivities that I never knew I had. And that's a
oh,
big change for an endurance athlete. So I wanted to bring that into the light as well for people who do have certain other issues,
mm,
either like diabetes. You have to pay attention. And that's where somebody like Kevin comes in, y'all. When y'all are listening, somebody like Kevin or Victor or myself, you go to find the answers you need to take care of what you want to address, to do the things you love to do. I do a lot with mindset, Kevin, and one of the biggest things is people say, oh, I can read my phone late at night and eat popcorn at midnight and get up and do a 7 or 8, 9 mile run at dawn. Yeah, and you're going to feel like crap, and you're going to, excuse my French, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but you're never going to come out of that run without being ill. Your body just can't metabolize, it can't process. You're not getting the hydration, you're not getting what you need. So what's the trade-off? Where do you find the answers to get where you want to go successfully? Somebody like Kevin, somebody like Victor, somebody like Adele, some another type of medical personnel that might address medical issues. I'm a two-time cancer survivor. I ran and played competitive tennis through cancer because it was my salvation. And yeah, because physically I couldn't control the cancer, but I can control everything else I do sanity wise. So y'all go outside and find the people that can answer the questions to meet your needs specifically and uniquely, so that you can be successful in your journey, because that's what we always want. We always want you to be happy. That's what we want, right, Kevin? Look where we
yeah,
are today.
absolutely.
68, 69, and that kid over there in the other screen, he's 10 years younger.
Well, I have a question because we're getting ready to wrap it up, but
Okay.
it's something that I've been asking a lot of the local people. Can we
Mm.
use a training camp here in the Spokane area for
Ah,
I think,
triathlons and endurance sports? Just endurance sports,
yeah,
a
yeah.
big triathlon camp. What do you think?
you know,
Yeah.
when I was training for Penticton in 2013, TriStars, which is a club out of Victoria, Canada, held a training camp up there in
Mhm.
Penticton for that particular Ironman, and it was great. It was, we didn't have it. It was on like 50 people because we stayed several days, but we got to go out and ride the course, and we got to swim in the lake and run the course and stuff. But it was really beneficial, and I keep thinking, why don't we do something like that around here? I think
Mhm.
I think people would love it, depending on if you held it like a day camp.
Yeah.
Not and people could come in and stay in hotels and stuff, but
Mhm.
um, and she didn't like provide food or anything. We stayed in an Airbnb, and we all kind of did our own thing for meals.
Mhm. Mhm.
Uh, but then when she set up these training runs or training rides, and then
Right.
she would go along in the car and be our support wagon and stuff. But
Yeah.
Right.
um, but if we did something, like and added a nutrition lecture in there and a bike
Exactly.
lecture
That's
and a
what I
swim.
was thinking. Because my
Yeah.
fantasy is that we could make it into a big thing. Start small, have it 1 or 2 days,
Yeah,
and then make it into a week or two where it's a retreat now. You have different stuff. You have like uh, the swim, bike, running, the nutrition. But if you can do all those practices while you're training, while you're recovering, it's very different than hearing a lecture
Yeah,
and then going on and practicing it later, because a lot of the stuff you forgot, but it's in
absolutely.
your mind. You're actually going through the cramping while listening to the lecture on hydration or something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. I
All
really do.
right, I'm
All
gonna
right, y'all.
pursue
That's
it
going to be
then.
our project for our 70s, Kevin.
Yes.
We'll bring the youngster along with us. We'll let him do a little bit of the legwork. Bring in the mindset, bring in the motivation, bring it all in, all the
You
bases.
have
That would be
the
great.
training venues. I mean, between Medical Lake and Sanders Beach and riding.
Sandpoint, there's so much, so many areas.
Yeah, yeah, certainly have the venues around here to make that happen.
All right,
I have one
let's do
question,
it.
if you don't mind, because I really do want
Absolutely.
Kevin to finish up. I don't want to keep her too much longer.
Fine.
But what is your biggest inspiration in your life that got you where you are today doing these different things that you've chosen to do? What was your inspiration for all of this?
Wow. I think, gosh, I, I guess I would start with my father, who was a Green Beret Special Forces Army officer. So we grew up in a very household. Um, but he, accomplished a lot of really cool things, and that probably obviously inspired me to go into the military. Um, I think I just have an insatiable need to continue to improve.
Good.
There are days where I wish I didn't. Um, like the last course that I signed up for, and I'm a personal trainer as well, and teaching classes, and I'm going, maybe I just don't want to do any of this stuff anymore. But then I go, well, how do you not, right? How do you
Right.
not do that while you're aging? Because otherwise you sit on the couch. And so it's that balance of working too much, sitting on the couch too much. But so I think a lot of my own internal demons are in there flitting
Mhm.
around. Better be doing something worthwhile.
What I'm going to give you back from your comments is there's such a need and assertiveness inside of you that wants to be the best of who you are, and you found so many different avenues, not just professionally in your registered nursing and the Air Force and all that, but all of these other things that you've taken advantage of. It's taking and grasping those opportunities, and I
True.
think that's it. I think the bottom line is that desire to be the best and more of what we were the day before. What can I learn new? If it's one thing, even if it's teaching ourselves to rest. And I truly believe that as we do get a little bit older and look back on experiences that we've all had, there's always going to be one more thing we want to do. And I
Right.
think you have the desire and the intention. Let's go see if I can grab it. And I love that.
Yeah.
I love
I
that
don't know
about
if
you.
I have
I
the body
truly
for it
love that
anymore.
about you.
But I think the other piece of that too, Adele, is I really, really enjoy
Mhm.
helping people accomplish their goals. I mean, when I teach that little silver fit class out there at Airway, and I see these 80-year-olds out there, and they finally got a set of weights in their hands, and they're working through my class, and they're complaining, and they're going, it's too hard, but they're getting through it. Or I'm working with an individual that gets through an Ironman or a marathon or whatever the case may be. I really enjoy that piece. I
Yeah.
really enjoy helping them.
A
Yeah.
lot of rewards
Good.
in that. A lot of rewards personally that you see someone achieve their success because you've helped them on their journey. I love that. Victor, I'm going to turn it over to
Yeah.
you. I know you wanted to close up with a couple of things, and
Of
I'll let
course.
you do
Yes.
that.
Yes. Well, just to add it to that, with the saying that goes, "If you enjoy what you do, you never have to work a day in your life," kind of type thing. It's, but anyway, thank you so much for being in our podcast. I'm extremely honored. We've been in Team Blaze for quite some years now, a lot, and I want to continue working together. Mm, where can people find you if somebody wants to get
Yeah.
your advice on nutrition, diet? Uh, where
Um,
should they go?
Well, that little website that Adele found, I don't even keep that up at all because that was one of my other certifications and it
Mhm.
was freebie. Typically, just emailing me probably is the easiest way, Victor. And I'm
Okay.
happy to give out my email if that's You want me?
Absolutely. Do you mind if I put it in the show notes so people can
Yeah,
get a hold
that's
of you?
fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds
I
good.
can do individual plans or I do group talks too, but yeah, I can help out in any way I can. I do some, depending on what's needed, I will charge a small fee because it does take a lot of work to
Absolutely.
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, we
definitely.
have to
together.
make
But
a living.
individual one-on-one questions or somebody saying, I'm racing tomorrow, I don't know what to do for breakfast, I will answer that in an email.
Right, right, right.
Awesome.
Well, I do want to tell our viewers how special this was for us to have Kevin today. She's been an inspiration to a lot of people, but also to me today, getting to meet her. I've got all these things in my head. I just want to keep talking, but I know that we do have to end this. But y'all, listen, go to our show notes. Victor will put a lot of the contact information in there. As Kevin said, you can contact her by an email if you'd like to follow up with her on anything that she offered us today in our discussion. Also, if you do have any questions or anything that we'd like to address, if there's some major questions that Kevin can come on again to address, we can do that. I think Kevin and Victor can probably schedule that, and I'm just jumping in as much as I can. But listen, y'all, go to it, enjoy this, share our episode with a lot of people. Let us know if you have any questions or any suggestions. We can make sure we get back with Kevin ourselves and get them to you, okay? And I can't wait to hear from everybody. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank you, Kevin,
Adele.
so much. Thank you,
And
Oh,
Victor.
my
We
thank you,
pleasure.
love you
Kevin.
My
so
pleasure.
much.
Happy to do it.
We'll see y'all again soon. Bye, everybody.